Welcome to Rick and Bubba University, the podcast. Here we are in the low-lit studios of the Rick and Bubba show. And Bubba, I tried to make a point to look before we started this podcast. I believe this is podcast 48.
Wow. That's a lot, Rick.
Yeah,
Are you sure?
47 or 48. Okay, I'm losing a little confidence now, but it's 47, 48.
2020's been a hard year to keep up with anything.
It really has. And we welcome all of you that are listening to this or you're watching this, either on our YouTube channel or on Pluto TV, or you're listening to it. We thank you for being here. Today, Bubba, we're going to talk about one of our favorite topics, and that is delicious food. And we are going to introduce our audience. Some of you already know this person. Others may be, meeting her for the very first time. It is Brenda Gantt. Now, if you go to Facebook and you search Cooking with Brenda Gantt, you will find this Facebook phenomenon of this wonderful woman who is making delicious foods for you to learn how to make on your own. And Brenda joins us on this edition of Rick and Bubba University, the podcast. Brenda, welcome.
Brenda.
Thank you. I am so glad to be here. I wish you were here with me.
Well, the way you cook, I wish we were as well.
Yes, I know. That's the one drawback of the podcast. We can't sample what you're cooking.
Now,
It's mighty good. This morning I fixed tomato gravy, chocolate gravy, fried apple pies, and a big pan of biscuits and cheese grits. We had a feast this morning.
I see you hit all the major food groups.
Oh, Brenda. All right, so I want to go back to what you said about the chocolate sauce, because believe it or not, my wife and I were both raised in Alabama. She was raised in Gunnersville, Alabama. I was raised in part of my life Birmingham, Alabama, and then most of it I was in a place called Oxford, Alabama. Of course, you're an Alabama girl, so you know where all these places are. But so we grew up, Bubba the same, in small town, deep South Alabama. But my wife was the one who said that her mama made chocolate biscuits. And honestly, and it's no dig on my mama, because she's
chocolate biscuits or chocolate gravy.
Well, chocolate gravies. They called it chocolate biscuits. So,
okay.
Because it was chocolate gravy over regular
So
biscuit.
her mama would make, the delicious, Southern cathead biscuit, and then they would put a little pat of butter inside them, and they'd put that chocolate gravy all over it. And I had never heard of that. Now, my mama made chocolate gravy or chocolate sauce that we put on pound cake or put on ice cream. She made her own, but I'd never put it on biscuits. And now my wife has made that for our family a tradition. We only are allowed to eat them at Christmas because of the calorie count. But
it's high calorie, that's for sure.
But I had never had that before. But I got to tell you something. It's delicious. Is this something that was common to you growing up?
Okay, no, it was not. As a matter of fact, with all the viewers that I have, they kept writing in asking me if I would show how to make chocolate gravy. That their mother and their grandmother made this, and they wanted some. So I told them, I said, look, y'all, I said, I have never heard of chocolate gravy. I've never eaten chocolate gravy. Y'all are going to have to teach me. So sure enough, the lady came to our coddle house and she brought me some chocolate gravy and she brought me the recipe. So I fixed it. And now I give my guests a choice of what kind of gravy they want. And a lot of times they'll choose the chocolate gravy. And it is really good. And the other day I fixed ice cream, put it on top of that too. So, hey, it's multi-purpose.
Brenda, I can tell you eat a lot like we do.
Yeah.
Brenda, I've got to know this. Obviously you're a great cook, and we can get into some of those details. But the difference is you became an internet sensation. Now, you're 73 years old. Internet sensations and 70-year-olds usually don't go together.
Right.
How did all this get started?
All right. Well, at our church, we've got quite a few millennials. Okay. And somehow, with them growing up, they just never did learn how to cook from scratch or without a recipe.
Right.
So the guys and the gals, they would come up to me and want me to do a cooking show or something. They said they're starving. They need somebody to teach them to cook. So I told them I didn't have time. I just don't have time, y'all. So then one day I was going to cook Sunday lunch. And I thought, well, hey, I'm going to have biscuits anyway. I might as well just video this thing. So I got out my biscuit bowl. I have a bowl that I keep a cloth over it. with my sifter and my little cutter and everything. And so I got the phone and I held it in this hand and I started making a biscuits with the other hand, and I showed them how to do it on my little personal Facebook page, which was like, 500 people, something kind of like that. So I guess when I put it on there, they were so excited that they shared it, and then whoever they shared it with shared it, and within 2 weeks it had hit 1 million views. So after that, then they wrote in and said, how do you cut up a whole chicken? How do you make fried pies? How do you make dumplings? So from there, it was born. And my son-in-law fixed me a separate little Facebook page. He said, well, I'm just going to fix you this, and you can play with it and teach them how to cook on this. And from there, I mean, it's just gone wild. I mean, everybody's wanting to know how to cook simple things like rice that is not sticky, or how do you cook butter beans or cornbread, just the simple things. So that's how it started.
Oh, Brenda, it breaks your heart. I mean, I'm happy for you, because let me tell you what's happened here just by listening, and it doesn't surprise me at all. We've got a generation of people. You mentioned these millennials, and nobody's ever taught them how to cook. We were talking about this. The generation for my parents and you and Bubba's parents, when we grew up, and it might have been a Southern thing, but I think even our country was this way. We ate a home-cooked meal 2 to 3 times a day, most of the time 3 times a day, and you only went out to eat on a very special occasion. But now, but this generation of parents go out to eat 3 times a day and cook on special occasions.
And this is what happened. You're right. They do exactly that. And what happened was during COVID, they couldn't go out to eat.
There you go.
They were stuck there with all these children that couldn't go to school. And everybody was saying, Mama, I'm hungry. So as a result, they were having to cook 3 meals a day. And they were about to panic. It's like, I don't know what to fix these people. So it is a bad situation.
But the good that's come out of it is now cooking with Brenda Gantt. I mean, there's husbands and there's wives, if the husbands will learn it, and there's children that are getting meals that they wouldn't have gotten if it had not been for Brenda Gantt. So you're serving a purpose to an entire generation of parents.
I'll tell you something else that I've noticed on the comments is that the people in America, and there's some people in foreign countries that are watching too, are, I think I would say the word lonely or searching for companionship, because the ones that are widowed, they're in the house, they can't get out, they're stuck. And so I'm kind of like entertainment for them. But I'm also giving some Bible scripture with that and speaking the name of Jesus. And I'm trying to speak truth into their life. And I think that it is building them up. They're seeing a side of me that I want them to see. And so, I always said biscuits and Jesus are good for the soul. Both of them.
I agree. So has your family members, have they been shocked by the success of your show?
I think we all are. I mean, we all are shocked. I'm shocked. They're shocked. Even my little smallest granddaughter, she said, I want my big mama back. In other words, she didn't like me making these videos all the time. And so, we've worked through that now and everything's okay, but it was a shock. And it was still a shock to me.
We're talking with Brenda Gantt. If you're looking on Facebook, Cooking with Brenda Gantt, and we'll continue this conversation on Rick and Bubba University, the podcast. So Brenda, let's talk about that. You started out. You run a bed and breakfast. Now I know you've done other things, like you've actually had an antique shop until your husband passed away, and
right.
and Hickory Ridge Lodge. And so tell us about the bed and breakfast, because one of the things I want to was wondering when we were just discussing. So your baby was saying, I want Big Mama back, because this was something you were just trying to do for your local church families. You were holding the phone in your hand. It turns into 1 million views. Now now people expect you to continue to show them how to cook various things. How are you making this all work schedule-wise? Now, how have you settled in?
Well, I've settled in that the children are now back in school.
Okay.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
For everybody.
And so while while the grandchildren are at school, I can do recipes and things for my audience, and I can take my time with it. And I usually put on things that I'm going to cook anyway. Just like one day I had some leftover ham, and I decided I was going to make a ham pot pie. Well, that was a big success on my cooking show, because ham pot pie is delicious. And I showed them how to make the dumplings that go in it and the crust. And I took it out of the oven, and I could see their mouth watering even on my Facebook page.
Like mine is right now. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, there's nothing any better than a ham pot pie. But so I'm taking things that are just around our kitchen, like chocolate gravy, for instance. All the people have those ingredients in their kitchen. And so that's easy to make. And the biscuits, some of them, I've got lots of people that say they're 50 and 60 years old and they've never made a homemade biscuit because they could not do it. And they're making them. And one of the funny stories is I had a lady that was in her kitchen trying to make biscuits, and she was having a terrible time. She just couldn't get it going. And her husband came in there and he said, just go fry the bacon. I think I can do this. So we've got men out there that are now making biscuits, and they're just so excited, and they're doing a great job of it. Hooray for men.
You know, it's true, because I think some of these things for generations, like you said, we sat there, our mama or our grandmama made the homemade biscuits. My mama, we had cornbread every single day. And so when Sherry and I, my wife and I, got married, I was like, where is the cornbread? And she was like, well, my mama only made biscuits. I've never made cornbread, because they'd have biscuits for dinner or for breakfast or whatever. And I said, well, you know, I got to have cornbread. I mean, and so you realize here she was saying, well, I want to make the cornbread. I just don't know how. Of course, my mama's helped her and gave her recipe and all of that. And we did a book one time called the big giant honking book of grub. And we put some of our wives' and mothers' recipes. But I think a lot of these things that you're helping, and it sounds like you're confirming, it's not that people don't want to do it. They're intimidated because they don't know how.
That is correct. And so many, I even asked one of my customers one day, I said, tell me, why is it you feel like you cannot cook? Why is there a generation in there that feels like they can't cook? And she said that that she was so busy being a teenager and everything during this time that she never really learned from her mother. And then when she married, they're out there working, and you got, kids going to ball, and you got people doing this and doing that, and they weren't home. And so it was so easy just to stop by and get something in a box, or, some kind of chicken box. And so they said, we just never learned, and their mothers never taught them. So that's this generation.
Yeah, and I think part of it is, and you hit on it, and Bubba and I, we've talked about this, and I understand things in some ways are different when we were growing up. But my mother would actually, it's not that we didn't play ball, we played ball. But my mother would not sit in a lawn chair or in the bleachers and watch every single practice. I mean, she'd go to the game. She'd go to the games.
Pick up and drop off for practice.
But they would drop us at practice, go to the store, get what they needed for dinner, go home and cook it, and then come back and get you after practice. But it seems now this generation of parents, this helicopter hovering.
That's exactly it.
They think they have to be there. They got to watch everybody, and maybe because there are some terrible things that happen now that we didn't have to deal with. But I think you're going to be okay with your baseball or football coach for you to go get something and fix dinner. I think it'll be all right for a practice.
Well, I do too. I think you can fix dinner. And you know what? It doesn't take that long. I'm showing them easy ways to peel. I'm telling them things like the most important thing in the kitchen is know how to use a good sharp knife.
Yeah.
That's important.
And always cut away from you. I learned that.
Yeah, cut away.
And actually, the sharper the knife, the less chance you have of cutting yourself.
That's right, because you don't struggle. Yeah.
That's right. That's exactly right. If you have a dull knife, you might think it's safer, but it's not because you're chopping so hard trying to peel that you're liable to cut yourself. At least with a sharp knife, you're going to have a nice, clean cut.
Yeah, cleaning deer, same way.
Yeah.
So, Brenda, let me ask you this. I don't want to get too much into your business end on this, but for people who are watching and listening to this, I know what's going through their mind, and that is, how do you make money doing this? Okay, you're doing it. People are wanting to see it, but what does the business side of this look like? And I'm not talking about numbers in general, but how do you monetize what you're doing?
Well, I'm on Facebook, so because of being on just Facebook, there is no monetary on Facebook. You know,
Right.
people who have a Facebook page, it's not like a YouTube page.
Right.
Okay.
So I don't get any money for this. And I started out, and I'm still doing it as a labor of love, a labor of I really want to help people in America. That I really want to help, and I want the old ways to be familiar to the new ones. I had a group of their coach wanted them to learn how to make biscuits. So I don't know, there was like 8 or 10 of these girls that came early in the morning, and they gathered around my chopping block. I guess y'all can see, but I don't think you can see my chop block. But anyway, and I taught them how to make biscuits. Well, see, that's going to carry on.
Yeah.
And then I had another group of mothers that their children's count got canceled. So they brought the children here. You're talking about 4 and 5-year-olds, and I taught them some things. So I think mothers are trying, and they see the need out there.
Well, I think one of the reasons that they're trying, it goes beyond the good food. I mean, obviously, it can be economically beneficial to prepare food versus always eating out because of expense. But I think there's something more
Right.
to it. And what you're seeing, you're talking about doing this as a labor of love, and Bubba and I have talked about it on the show. It sounds simple and quaint, but it's actually, I think, true. When the family moved away from the table, sitting down
Amen.
at the table, catching up with what's going on with your kids, catching up what's going on with your spouse, everybody spending time around the table. When this became everybody grab and go, and then everybody spread out through the house and take your bag in front of your TV, and I'll take my bag in front of my computer, or I'll do this, I'll do that. There's been an effect on the nuclear family that has been detrimental. And I think the returning to the table is bigger than just we're getting food that's prepared by hand that may also be less expensive and better quality. It's bigger than that.
I agree totally with that. You know, I don't know if y'all were raised this way, but my children were. When we sat down at the table at night to eat, back then we had rotary phones, so we took the phone off the hook so that nobody could call during our supper time. And also, when we finished eating, I wouldn't let the children get up. And I said, we're going to sit here and talk a while. And they said, what are we going to talk about? I said, well, we'll think of something. Something will come up. You know, you're going to sit here and talk. So, and then my daddy, when I was growing up, he worked the 3 to 11 shift. So he always made sure that he was up at breakfast. So that was our family time at breakfast. And we all sat around the little kitchen table and had our breakfast. So it is important. You know, it's a bonding thing. It's a time to bond and air out some things.
So
That's important time. And something about sitting over food and talking. And another thing that gets away from us, and I know we're guilty of this in our family, is eating in front of the TV. But really, when you cut that off and you just have time to talk, there's something great about that afternoon. I mean, the dinner meal.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
So,
It is.
So let me ask you this. We'll come back. We're going to talk more. I want to ask you one question, then we want to get into some delicious food as well.
Okay.
But we're talking to Brenda Gantt, Cooking with Brenda Gantt on Facebook. If you'd like to watch her and you'd like to see what she does, and she also has a bed and breakfast you can find out about as well. And we'll continue our talk with her on Rick and Bubba University, the podcast. All right, now, Bubba, I want to talk about ExpressVPN. Now, why does everyone need a VPN? Well, we know that because every single website we visit, I mean, all the big names out there in the industry, they know what we're doing.
Yeah.
They monitor what we're doing. Your ISPs can, then take that information, and whether do they sell it to ad companies, and you get hit with ads, and the tech giants, and then they use that data to target you. And sometimes that can be annoying. You're like, I don't like getting covered up with all this stuff. So that's the reason why you need to use ExpressVPN. It's like if you don't use ExpressVPN, and I know Brenda's with us, but still this is still funny. I mean, can you imagine going to the restroom and not closing the door?
Oh,
I mean, you wouldn't do that. So why if you
not but once?
Yeah, if you have ExpressVPN, then it's going to create a secure encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet. So now your online activity, it really can't be seen by anyone. It's rated number 1 by CNET, Wired, and The Verge. It works on phones, laptops, even routers. So everyone who shares your Wi-Fi can also be protected. So maybe, like for me, the phone, I don't like some of the stuff I'm getting on the phone. ExpressVPN has cut all that down, and it can do that for you as well. If you'd like to secure your online activity, just visit expressvpn.com/RickBubba today. That's expressvpn.com/RickBubba, and that'll get you an extra 3 months for free. expressvpn.com/RickBubba. Talking with Brenda Gantt, Cooking with Brenda. She just decided to help out some of the ladies at her local church. Before she knew it, her Facebook page had over 1 million views of her trying to prepare biscuits while holding a phone in one hand and kneading the dough in the other. And now it's become an ongoing Facebook phenomenon. So
she's got a stand now to hold her phone.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you do have you got a fancy setup now for your phone. And she also
that was given to me anonymously. That was given to me anonymously. I don't even know who sent it, but they sure are sweet to do so.
Yeah, they got tired of watching you try to hold it in one hand and cook in the other.
I guess so.
She also runs the Coddle House Bed and Breakfast, and of course she cooks for all the guests who come and stay. I find myself writing that down. That might be a good idea for Sherry and I to do a little getaway. Let Brenda cook for us a little bit and have a nice time away at the bed and breakfast in beautiful Andalusia, Alabama. But let me ask you this. First of all, we talked about sitting around the table. Do you forbid singing at the table? I mean, my mother would not allow singing at the table or wearing a hat at the table. Is this your rule as well?
Well, we never had the singing at the table problem, but as growing up, you had to have on a shirt and you couldn't have on a hat at the table. That's for sure. And if you went out to eat, the first thing you did was take off your hat when you entered the restaurant, or if a woman entered the room, you took off that hat. So, yes, that was kind of a rule at our house.
Some of that's been lost, I think, as we've moved along, and I don't know good or bad. I know one time my mom asked me to take my hat off at the table. My hair was a mess, and she said, put it back on.
Right. If it was her call, that's fine. Yeah. It was funny watching my dad, because, we were all terrified of my dad, and he was a coach, so he wore a cap all the time. So, right. But when we would go to his mama's house, Meemaw, the minute we sat down, she would look up. I'm talking about he's sitting there, in his 40s. And boy, my grandmama would look at him and say, Billy, take your hat off. And buddy, he would take it off in a second. And of course, we laughed at the fact that he was being called Billy by his mama. But let's talk about some of your favorite things. Let's say like right now, you mentioned the knife, and that's one thing. I'm out here. I want to start cooking for myself. I need to be sure my kitchen's set up like it needs to be set up. What are the things that you would say, Brenda, every kitchen must have these things? There's fancy things, but I'm talking, then there's foundational.
The basics.
The basics. What does every kitchen have to have?
You need a black skillet. That would be for your cornbread, and you need another black skillet for your biscuits. Those are 2 black skillets. And then you need one that's kind of deep, and that's for your frying skillet. So if you had those 3 black skillets, you'd be doing good. You'd need a really sharp knife and a sharpener, like a stone you could sharpen it on, or a knife sharpener. You would need a mixer because a lot of your cakes and my cream potatoes and
potatoes,
sweet potato, you really need it could be a little hand mixer. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, but you do need a mixer. And so those would be some of the things I think that you really would need. A rolling pin.
Yeah. Now look, don't assume because you remember that some of these people never done this before. Be sure you tell them on these skillets how you do the maintenance on them. Because I can tell you, I've seen many a rusted skillet.
Rick, you're not talking about washing it, are you?
Because some of these young ladies and men who are trying it, they don't know, so they go over to the sink after they've followed your instructions, and then you got a rusted skillet. So tell them how to maintain those skillets.
Okay, I did do a video on that, so if they go to the Cooking with Brenda Gantt, they will see that I actually went down to my barn and got the ugliest, rustiest pot I could find, a black one. And I came in here and I scrubbed it and I showed them how to do that. And then I immediately dried it and put bacon in it and fried it. So that's called seasoning your skillet.
Oh, yes.
And I pulled the bacon up on the side and that kind of thing and seasoned it. Now, after I get through, I do wash it with real quickly with a little, my dishwater. But the key is to make sure that it's good and dry. Because if it's not dry real good, it's going to rust. Some people dry theirs in the oven and that kind of thing, but I use mine every day, so there's no chance of mine, doing anything because I've always got them out using them. And another thing they need is a good flat spatula. They need a spatula because when you're making gravy, you got to stir that bottom of that pan with that spatula. So a spoon will not work on that.
Have you ever heard how Bubba says that word that you just said?
No, how does he say it?
Spatula.
Like
rhymes with bachelor.
That's because his mama taught him to say that.
I don't think she did. I just don't think I ever could say it the other way. I don't know what happened. Of course, we have the Rick and Bubba spatula now. We need to send you one.
Yeah,
you'd love it.
We're going to send you one. We have one in our store, because we love to eat. And, we're the kind of people that someone like you loves to see show up because we appreciate really, really good food. And but something, and I'm going to ask Bubba if he heard it. I will say this, though. You mentioned it earlier in the podcast. I've heard of chicken pot pie. I actually have never heard of ham pot pie.
Oh, okay. Well, you make it just like chicken pot pie, except you put different ingredients. In a chicken pot pie, you've got boiled eggs and English peas, and then your ham and dumplings. And in a chicken pot pie, you usually don't put that. You put the English peas and carrots and eggs in that. So anyway,
really, everything's it's a little bit
and
different.
They taste different.
Yeah. Would you prefer, like, if I said, all right, Brenda, you can only have one, ham pot pie or chicken pot pie, which one would you pick?
I'd pick the ham.
Oh, wow. I feel like
I don't like the English peas.
Well,
I just never have been an English pea guy.
Have you ever heard of ham dumplings? Ham dumplings instead of chicken and dumplings?
No, Brenda, what's happened?
Well,
I guess my pork intake is
not where it needs to be.
I've had both these dishes, but I've only had them with chicken.
Well, what you do is, like, if you baked a big ham for Sunday lunch, let's say, and y'all had ham and whatever you had with it. Well, then the next day you take that bone that you've got, your ham bone, and you boil it. And so then you make your dumplings and you cut off some of the ham and put it to the side in cubes, and you boil that ham bone and get all that good broth in there, and you put your dumplings in that. And
golly, I'm hungry.
Then you can cube up the other ham and throw it back in for a little extra ham. But it's delicious. And then you give the ham bone to the dogs, so nothing's wasted. Everything's used.
Oh,
So, Brenda, what about desserts? Talk to me about your favorite. If you had to do the one for a special day, what would it be?
Well, I'm a pie girl. There's a lot of good cakes out there, and I make a chocolate torte cake that's real good. But and I make one that's called the orange slice cake. I make that at Thanksgiving and Christmas. It's made out of that orange candy.
Yeah,
it's delicious. But I prefer pies, so I like chocolate pie and I like lemon icebox pie. Those are my two favorites.
All right, let's talk chocolate pie for a minute.
Chocolate pie.
Let's land there for a minute. Now, tell us what kind of chocolate pie you gonna go with. We got a meringue on it, or how do you make it happen?
I've got two chocolate pies that I do, but the one that I prefer, it has a meringue on it on the top, and it is a recipe that you're going to put your eggs and sugar and milk and vanilla and all that kind of stuff in there, and a little bit of flour for thickening, and you're going to cook that and stir it on the stove, until it thickens up, and then you put it in a already cooked pie shell. And it's only got egg yolks in it because you've saved out your whites to make your meringue, not all. And you beat that with that mixer that I'm telling you need in your kitchen.
No, you got to have that.
That's right. And put a little sugar in it, and then you stick it back in the oven. And and I also make a real good, it's called a coconut custard pie. And it's baked in the oven. It's delicious. And have y'all ever eaten buttermilk pie?
Oh, yes.
No, I don't think
That's
I have.
good.
Oh, yes, I have. I'd like to have a slice of yours, though.
And well, you sound like my kind of fellow. That sounds good.
Yeah.
But I love to eat, and I love to see my family eat. And as a matter of fact, I think that we need to remember to always have our children in the kitchen and letting them stir and do and learn how to use a knife. It's okay if they get cut a little bit. It's going to happen sooner or later anyway. So I think it's important that we teach our children how to manage the kitchen and how to do in the kitchen. Let them make the pie.
Amen.
They can do it.
Brenda, back to the business side of this. Have you had anybody approach you that have seen all these views online and said, "Hey, we need to do an official cooking show with you on one of these cooking channels or networks"?
No, I haven't.
Well, today that's going to change.
So
That's going to change. You ever thought about sitting down with Rick and Bubba Incorporated? We're talking with Brenda Gantt, and we're going to continue with her when we come back on Rick and Bubba University, the podcast. All right, Car Shield. Now, we know this. Look, everybody, we love them warranties. You pick up a used car, it might have a little bit of warranty on it, it might not. But the bottom line is, if you're driving an automobile that is no longer under any kind of warranty, guess what's going to happen, Bubba?
Yeah, I know what's going to happen.
It's on you. Yep. And all these computer systems in cars right now, that's the new normal. We got transmissions, they're electronically controlled, touchscreen displays, dozens of sensors. But you can't fix any of these new features yourself. You can be the best at cars all you want to. I promise you don't know how to fix this kind of stuff. So when something breaks down, boy, it could cost you a fortune. And we've all been there on that expensive repair. You look and you go, something's going on with all this newfangled stuff with my automobile. I don't even know what that symbol even means. Yeah. What does that symbol mean?
What is that light
What
flashing?
Does it even mean? And so if you're under the Car Shield, though, and you've got a protection plan, well, it's not a biggie, because your affordable protection plan from Car Shield will save you thousands on a covered repair, including computers, GPS, electronics, and more. And Bubba, they start as low as $99 a month. There's no long-term contracts or commitments. And boy, I'm going to tell you, what else you get if you're under the Car Shield? They will deal directly with the ASC certified mechanic of your choice. That could be the dealership or just the mechanic. They'll deal directly with them. They'll give you complimentary 24/7 roadside assistance and, Bubba, a rental car to use while yours is being fixed, and there's no charge for that either. So they've helped over 1 million customers. They might as well help you. Drive with confidence, knowing you've got coverage from America's #1 auto protection company for as low as $99 a month. So just go to carshield.com and put our code in, Rick Bubba. Put that code in. You're going to save 10%. Carshield.com, then you put in Rick Bubba. A deductible may apply. Talking to Brenda Gantt, and you may know her or may not for Cooking with Brenda Gantt, but you're going to. So, Brenda, here's the question. If we're going to talk to you, and I agree with Bubba, I mean, you're getting millions of views now. And in this world, you know what? Brenda, I hate to tell you this. You know what you're becoming, don't you? An influencer.
I don't know, y'all. Don't tell me.
You're becoming an influencer. And now the influencers, I mean, there's people, somebody could walk up to you and say, I tell you what, next time you make that cornbread, why don't you use this cornmeal? and that kind of stuff. But I know you probably have your favorites. But let's say that Bubba and I, we roll up to the bed and breakfast or wherever you're going to prepare food for us. and we're there for the very first time.
Okay.
And we're saying, Brenda, you decide what we eat today. We want the one, a number one Brenda Gantt meal. What are you going to put on the table for two big boys from Alabama?
Well, now you know I only fix breakfast. Did you know that?
No, okay, that's it.
That's important. Let's start with
that's
that.
okay. All right, so we're sitting down for breakfast.
Okay. Well, one of the things I'm going to fix you is some good hot biscuits.
Yes, you are.
And what I do is I'm going to serve them to you almost immediately after I take them out of the oven, and I'm going to put a cloth over it so that they hold in their heat, because nobody wants a cold biscuit.
No.
Big old cat head biscuit.
Want 'em hot. So I'm going to serve you that, and then I'm going to let you choose your gravy. Now you can do chocolate gravy, sawmill gravy, milk gravy, tomato gravy. You're going to, or red-eyed gravy. A lot of people like red-eyed.
I was about to
gravy.
say, don't leave red-eye gravy out. You got a pretty good red-eye gravy?
Yes, I make red-eyed gravy.
Okay.
I make red-eyed gravy, so I'm gonna have you something to go on your biscuit, and then I'm gonna have you some creamy grits. Now you know on that grits bag, it'll say quick grits or 5-minute grits. Listen, y'all, if you cook it 5 minutes, they're gonna be gritty.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to put those things on when you first get up, and you've got to cook them a long time. And I add whole milk in mine, and I put cream cheese in mine and a lot of butter, and so they're real creamy. They're really good. And I'm gonna fix you some eggs. Now you can have it overlight, you have it runny or hard or however you want it, or I can fix some things to go in your egg, like saute some mushrooms and peppers and things like that to throw on top with some cheese, or make you an omelet. So and then don't leave out the fried pie.
Please
I
don't.
make all kinds of fried pies for breakfast. Today they had apple pie, but I also make blueberry pies, the fried pies out of blueberries. And you know, our parents used to make them out of dried fruit. Have you ever eaten a dried peach pie or a dried apple pie?
I've had a peach fried pie, but it was not dried peach.
No, not that I know of.
Well, in the olden days, they would lay out a sheet in the yard in the sun, and they would put all their peaches on there. They would cut them up real thin or put their apples on it. And then they would cover that whole thing up with a screen wire. And the sun actually dried those. And when they dried 2 or 3 days, they would put them in a pillowcase and put them in a closet. And that's what they ate during the wintertime.
I've never heard of that. I did not know that.
Yes, that's how you get your dried fruit. You could do pears or whatever. But they put the screen over it to keep the flies off of it while it's out there in the yard drying.
Yeah, so
And then you make your fried pie.
So now, what fried pie? Now, when I'm kind of a classic guy. I mean, I don't walk away from the apple. You know, it's great, and I do like a peach, but I don't think I've ever had the blueberry fried pie. Is the actual crust have blueberries in it, or am I biting into blueberries on the inside?
You're biting into blueberries on the inside. I have a cousin down the road who's got about 12 blueberry bushes, and he lets me come each year and pick his blueberries after he gets through. So he gets like 125 gallons off those few little things. And so then I go pick them. And so when I get ready to make my pies, I take those blueberries and cook them down a little bit. Then I add my sugar in it. And that is what I put inside that pie. And I make my crust, my dough, and I roll it out with a rolling pin, and you put that blueberry in there. And then, you know, I put water around the edges and take a fork and press down the edges. And then I deep fat fry that whole thing. And so that's the fried pie. And then you put some powdered sugar on top.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's really good.
Yeah, it is.
I love them. I do.
Now,
my grandchildren
Might need to have
all
an insulin shot standing
yeah,
by.
that's
but,
all
I
right.
mean, other than that,
It don't matter, does it, Brenda?
No, well, once in a while, you know, here's the thing. When we think back about our grandparents, they ate fatback, they ate streakoline, they ate lard, they ate big biscuits every morning. They ate 3 meals a day, and yet they didn't have a weight problem, and they lived forever. So I think the key is you need to stay busy and stay up and stay working and stay moving, and you're going to burn off all that. That's what I think, because I eat fatback.
Yeah. I think, Bubba, you've talked about this before. When we were living the agricultural rural life, I don't remember our grandparents having any issue with their weight, and they ate everything you just described.
Oh, eat 3,000 calories a day, smoke Camel cigarettes, and live to 90 something. You know.
Yeah, I told my
Never
daddy
touch
one time, he lived
sunscreen.
to be 92. I told him, I said, Daddy, those cigarettes gonna kill you if you don't quit smoking them. But he didn't, he smoked them till he passed on, and he lived a long life. So I mean, we don't think about stuff like that, but they were healthy back then.
I get
Strong as a horse.
It's strong. It had to be. It had to be. I think our problem is we sit around too much. It's not that. I think that plays a bigger role than what we eat. And of course, we've gone to a lot of people start eating a lot of processed foods, and I think that's been a mistake
That's
too.
true. That's true too. But there's been some people on my Facebook. They'll say, "You just have so much energy. How do you get all that energy?" Well, the science says that an object in motion stays in motion. So if you start moving and you keep moving, you're going to be able to continue to move. But when you sit down, then it all falls apart and you get stiff and you can't do anything. So I say keep moving. That's what I say.
Yeah. I think too. A lot of times people get in trouble because they got too much time on their hand. The Bible talks about that too.
What, idle mind's a playground for the devil? Is that what you're talking about?
Devil's workshop.
Yeah, Devil's Workshop. Well, we're hungry now, Brenda. I mean, it's
very hungry.
It's very.
Sadly, we're taping this right before lunch. I'm about to chew the microphone off right now.
Well, we'll have to come up with some plan. Either we got to come to you, or you come to us and make us a delicious breakfast, or bring us one of your favorite meals and bring it.
Sounds great. I'd love to.
Yeah, and so how can somebody see you and be part of what you're doing? I guess do you have like a standard time, or you just record them and people watch them when they want to?
I record them and people watch them when they want to. I've got some people that are watching my fried chicken livers, and I did that a long time ago. But, I say a long time ago, I hadn't even been on Facebook since the last of April the 22nd, actually.
Really? So you hadn't recorded anything new since then?
Oh, yes. I'm just saying that some of them are just now finding me.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I got it. And Bubba,
I love fried chicken.
Boy, you're
livers.
talking Bubba's language, fried chicken livers.
Bubba, do you like gizzards too?
Not as much as livers, and I got that from my granddad. He used to fry those all the time, and that and mashed potatoes.
That's good. My son told me one time, he said, well, if I ever had to pick a last-minute meal, the last one I was ever going to have, I'd want you to fry me some liver with onions all on the top and cream potatoes and biscuits. That's what I want. I said, okay.
Do you use the same breading when you're doing livers as your chicken, or do you mix it up on when you're going to fry different types of meat?
I use the same. I use flour. That's what I use. But I always put buttermilk on my meat.
Mm-hmm. Make it stick.
Before I fry it. That's right. If you use whole buttermilk, then your flour or your cornmeal or whatever you're going to put on that, it sticks to it. And so when you put it in your grease, it really does well. It browns up good. It does a good job. And, one of the videos that's done extremely well has been the fried green tomato video.
Yeah.
For years, we've been frying our fried green tomatoes in circles. Well, y'all know as well as I do, when you start in your skillet and you start frying them, by the time you get 4 or 5 done and sit it to the side and put 4 or 5 more circles in there, the first ones you fixed are already soggy.
Yep.
And so I cut mine in cubes like potato salad. And then I also cut yellow squash and zucchini squash and eggplant in those cubes. And when you put your little buttermilk and your salt and pepper on it and you deep fat fry it, you've got crust all the way around each piece, and they don't get soggy and they don't get greasy because you're frying them quicker in your deep fat.
I see what you're talking about.
It works really, really good, super good.
I'm gonna run over somebody on the way to lunch.
Well, Brenda, we've got to end our and I think we could even do more time. It's just Bubba and I can't take it anymore. Yeah. I mean, we have to go eat, and I mean, like, as soon as we say goodbye. So, Brenda, thank you. So nice of you to be with us. And if you go to Facebook and you search Cooking with Brenda Gantt, Gantt, you'll be able to find her videos, and I think you and your family will benefit. And I'll tell you one thing, you'll have great food, but you'll also meet a great lady. Brenda, thanks for taking time to be with us.
Thank you.
I loved every minute of it. Thank you so much.
I hope we can eat together soon.
Yep, let's break bread soon, and of course I do mean cornbread or biscuits.
All right.
So Brenda, thanks for being with us, and thanks to all of you for being with us on this edition of Rick and Bubba University, the podcast.